Okay. Hi, my name is Dawn Sines, and this is my assistant principal, Jana Lopez.
Hi, I'm Jana Lopez, one of the administrators at Earhart.
And we are doing my pre-observation for observation number 2. And so this is our meeting to discuss what we will be talking about. So let me see. Today's date is September 12th. And the time of the pre-observation is about 12:30. And so the content and strategies that we will be speaking of, I will be speaking of is the CIP for our campus. One of our goals is the campus ECRs. And so that is what I will be doing my PD over. And so I'm going to go over some of the slides with Ms. Lopez. Okay, so we already know, let me see. Where does this thing start? Okay, so one of our CIP goals for our campus this school year is to show improvement with our ECRs. As a campus, grades 3 through 5, we had 119 zeros. Which is a lot, and we were 2 points from getting an A for our campus, and so that is an area that we can improve in easily to correct that going forward. I think a lot of teachers, ECR is kind of new, and so a lot of teachers, they have an idea of how to teach it, but just trying to figure out what it is that we can do to improve it. I don't know if I'm talking to you. I guess I should talk to you.
No, you're doing great. Yep.
Okay, so this past school year, our third grade had 38%. 38% of the scores were zeros, and fourth grade 27%, and then fifth grade 38%. So the percentage is pretty high. If you add them all together, it's practically a whole grade level that made zeros. And so that's something we can easily improve. We have goals set up to going forward for our QSEs, QSE 1 and then QSE 2, and then our benchmark, and then finally next year STAR test. We should be able to limit some of those zeros and definitely bring them down to, it looks like 25 for third grade, 18 for fourth grade, and 25 for fifth grade. And honestly, I feel like with the teachers we have here and the staff and the students, that we can get these even a lot lower than that. Let me see. So first thing is one of the things we're going to do first is we are making sure that the students understand the rubrics. And so in fourth grade, we've already started that. And the students, a lot of them, they're amazed because they really don't know where they're getting their points from. They didn't understand that they have to have the introduction, the conclusion. And so making sure that the students are aware of how they're being scored. That's a big part of it, because it's just like when we say, go draw a house, they're going to draw a house. But if you say, go draw a house with a red door, 2 windows, a tree out front, then they know exactly what we want. And then they can give us exactly what we're looking for. So that is, one way is just like making sure they know what they're being scored on. Another thing is giving them an opportunity to look at the scoring. We've had them working with partners, scoring other papers that other students have done. Also, going over their STAR scores from last year and showing them, this is what they're looking for, this is what you are missing, so they know exactly what they need to do going forward. And actually, it was really good conversation. The kids were talking and they enjoyed it. The conversation was really good as they were looking at the rubric and pointing it out and like really looking for the details of, oh, this one doesn't have this, or this one's missing that. So having them have those conversations helps them to know, like, this is what I need to make sure I have.
Am I allowed to talk?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you're doing great.
I'm just nervous.
No, you're fine. No, and I completely agree. just having them look at it. And I know that you guys were doing that. And I was meeting with some third grade teachers who have goals this year of decreasing the zeros. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And so then I told them what you guys are doing. And they're like, oh my gosh, we want to do that too. And I know that next week during PLC, we're going to be doing like some at-bats. So that way everyone can see what you're doing. So that way it's like cross-curricular. So I'm like thinking in my brain, like, how can you guys show third grade? Like, how can we do at-bats across the grade levels? Just so that way everyone is speaking the same language. So that way third grade they see it, to fourth grade to fifth grade.
Exactly. That whole alignment there.
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
And you know, it seems like we're all doing the same thing.
Yes.
Because Miss Lundquist showed something and it's all the same thing. We just like say it a little different, but basically it boils down to the same thing.
Yep.
And yes, and I was gonna say something, I forgot what it was.
But I know last year, third grade, it took us a while to get like in the rhythm, right? So like, we think we should use this rubric, think we should do it this way, and then like I felt like January, we're like, okay, we got it.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, now we've got it at the beginning of the year. So we should hopefully just see some improvements with those.
And then it's funny because that's my personal goal as well. And I know another teacher said, do we have to do certain goals? And then I said, well, what were you thinking? And they said, the writing. I was like, that's funny because that's what I did too. So I think it's across the board. And that's what I mean. Like the teachers here, like we all have the same desire. Like if that's the school's goal, that's what we want to do because that needs to be our goal as well. And I think that this is just an easy fix to
100%.
problem. And then the craziest thing of all is, you know, we're all stressing over this.
Yes.
But here's the crazy thing. Our scores, like for third grade, we had 38% zeros. The state had 52%.
Okay.
So we were way lower than the state.
Yes.
Our fourth grade, I didn't know what the district had for third grade, but for fourth grade, we had 26% zeros. The state had 38%, and the district had 36%. So we're below district and state with that. And then fifth grade, I haven't got to theirs yet. But they're probably the same as us. We're still below everyone else, even though it seems overwhelming with the amount of zeros. But I think it's that desire to just like really help the school, help the kids, help us all.
I agree. And it's so funny because we went to a PLC training when we were talking about the cross-curricular with the writing. And what's hard is like when the kids get to fifth grade, so the ECRs for ELA, we want to extend the writing and provide the textual evidence, but with science, it gets it straight to the point. So it's hard for them to like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this in one place and then do something completely different in another place. We're like, okay, we've got to figure out like some alignment and getting that science talk also in third grade. So I love it, just implementing the writing across all subject areas.
Yes. And then speaking of that, I found these, no, I'm glad this just like leads right into this. So I found these little passages online from Teachers Pay Teachers. I've been using them this week as a warm-up. So they're short. They have, this one's nonfiction. It has, you know, diagrams, and then it's just a short passage, and it tells them, you know, restate the question, answer the question, cite your evidence, or cite the evidence from the text, and then explain. I don't use summarize, I do conclusion, but they break it out over here. They rewrite it after they've got their little steps over here, and then they have their ECR. And if they're doing them all the time, then it takes away the anxiety from the kids, and then it also shows us like where to help them. And what I've told my students right now is what I want them to do is the first thing they're doing is they have to understand what the passage is asking. I know the one last year said, it talked about a farmer and then a girl, and it was talking about their goals and how they're different, and it explained there was like several steps. And I told them it's just like a math problem. You have to take it apart, and you have to have all the components in your writing. So that's the first thing. They have to understand what the prompt is asking. Then they go in and they restate it. And so a lot of them, if it's asking a question, I tell them, you know, just if you need to, get rid of a couple of the first words, and then you can start with that. And in that first introduction paragraph, they'll have the restating, and then they have like 2 quick little details about what they're going to talk about in paragraphs 2 and 3. Then we go to paragraph 2, and then they're going to talk about reason 1, give text evidence. Paragraph 3 is going to be reason 2, text evidence, and then finally your conclusion, restate again, wrap it up. And that's very simple. We taught that a few years ago, and the kids did really good on their writing that year, but I waited too late to start it last year. And so this year I'm showing the kids that, and they're picking it up pretty quick because it's just very simple. And then I said, once we get this down, or if you feel you're good with this, then we can start adding in like the more of the transition words, the sparkle words, the catchy introduction, the, you know, the great closings, because I told them, like, if your closing is good and your conclusion,
Yeah.
the person who's reading it, they're going to enjoy it more because they're reading so many of them. You want something a little bit different than everyone else's.
Yes.
And so, but those can come later. Right now, we just want to get the structure down.
Yep. Agree.
So that's basically, let me see. Yeah, a lot of the kids were missing their introductions and their conclusions. That was part of it. And then again, a lot of them were just not understanding all the steps of the prompt. They just caught part of it. And then some of the things, another thing is we get scored on spelling.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like spelling curriculum, trying to find something to incorporate that. I think that at one of the workshops I went to, they said Amira has spelling. I was trying to look for it last night, and I will make sure I have that before the PD to share with people. But I could not find anything on Amira. But I know they said that in a workshop, and I don't know if it's maybe just not set up under spelling. It might be just like something else you're doing, and the spelling is part of that. But getting them more practice with spelling, and then finding stuff for math and science.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of just like quick writes they can do. But just setting up that text structure for that.
Yeah, and then I remember, gosh, I don't know if it was a week ago, but we mentioned putting some exemplars like on our walls, like in the classrooms of like, you know, a 5 or, you know, like, or a 0, or I know that we talked about that. So we could just do that like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So that way our students are just constantly seeing the good writing and the areas of growth writing, you know, and as they're writing, they can kind of look up and compare and contrast what they're writing compared to, you know, what got that score that we need them to get. So, yeah.
And again, I mean, it's more of them seeing it because it's the unknown. They're just going to write and they don't really know what they just know they're writing to a prompt. But when they realize they're writing and they're looking for certain things, they need to have those things.
Yes.
And
I like that your example is short.
Yes.
Like not the example, but the what you're going to have the students writing or using. It's short, so that way it's not like it's taking a lot of class time, but it's exposing them to it often. Yes.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And then and this is in line because actually I found this one and we just studied the eye in 4th grade. So this one is a diagram of the eye. It's called Amazing Eyes, and I mean it goes right in line to what we're already doing with them, and so it's just an easy way for them to just practice in the morning when they get here. If they get here early, when they're waiting for announcements, they can do it, you know, write this real quick and I can check it and see, okay, this is where I need to work with them at.
Sure.
So.
And then it could even like open up some student discourse, like having them look at each other's writing, and I don't know,
Even
I really like it.
Yes, that would be fun. Like if they were able to, you know, say
like
this.
follow the rubric, and then that lets me know if you can score one and score it, you know, somewhat appropriately, then okay, you know what the expectation is, so now maybe you can write it as well. Yeah.
And then again, with them doing the introduction, the 4 paragraphs, the conclusion, they have in restating, they're going to have everything they're looking for. So they'll be able to pretty much get most of their points. And then the grammar is coming just, you know, throughout each day. We have that built into the curriculum. And then the spelling we're going to work on. And they should be good. The other thing is... another thing I was thinking is we have access to like Writerly and No Red Ink, looking at Amira. Those tools are also, they can use across, you know, the different subject areas. But I think honestly, I think this is going to work. I think that it's the unknown, like letting them understand what they're doing. I think that'll help. I think we have great teachers here.
Oh yeah.
And I think that, I think those zeros we're gonna, considering that I was so like just taken away by how many we had, but then when you compare us to, once we start looking at like the district and the state, it's like, wow, we actually did really good.
Exactly.
So imagine how many other people have.
And you know, we're using that new data tracker this year, and whenever I was meeting with one of the teachers whose goal is to decrease the zeros in the writing, she was like, well, why don't we come up with a data tracker for our ECRs? So that way we're constantly, it's on the forefront of our mind, just like the comprehension piece of the test. Why aren't we also looking at ECRs? So I'm like, I think that's a great idea, but then it's also adding to plates. But she's like, but these are our goals. So we're willing to do that. And it doesn't have to be as intense.
Right.
It's just student name. What did they make? Red, green, yellow, highlight them, and then keep doing that as we go. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just the accountability, and it keeps it's on the forefront of our minds all the
Mhm.
time. So I think we're gonna see some improvements for sure.
And the other thing is, I just forgot what I was going to say. I forgot what I was going to say.
It's okay.
I guess with the ECR, what you were saying with the data tracker, also
Yes.
we can see like what they're lacking. We can maybe put
Yep.
notes like this is what they're lacking, and then we can see like the growth over time. Have they fixed that? And then with our sped kids, of course, like this morning I was working with some. Today, all we focused on was restating.
Yes.
We're going to take it in baby steps,
Yep.
and even with them, like if they only do reason one,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just get something from them, and they're all fighting. They're all doing this.
Yep.
So I don't see why we can't even with the sped kids and our ELL kids.
I agree.
So I think
agree.
it's gonna be great.
No, this all looks good. This all looks good. I can't wait to see the slides go into fruition, go into practice and action, and I'm sure that we're going to see the growth that we need to see that we need to see this year.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. So today we're talking about the extended constructive responses, the ECRs. Real quick, I'm Dawn Sines, and this is for my principal practicum course, observation number 2. So one of our CIP goals for our campus this school year is to show improvement with our ECRs. As a campus, 3 through 5, guess how many zeros we scored on our ECRs last school year? If you know, don't say anything. How many do you think we scored? Just take a random guess as a campus.
Oh, it's the campus.
Mhm.
Oh, 3 through 5.
Just any number.
Am I supposed to lowball it or highball?
Whatever you think.
What would you like for me? 15.
Okay, Miss Day.
About what might be 10. I was
10.
gonna say 5. Let's go with 5.
I was gonna say 75.
Okay,
Oh.
okay. So, unfortunately, you get a 0. You get a 0. You get a 0. We had 119 zeros as a campus.
I love how much y'all believed in
Yes, and we'll wrap up with that. So we had 119 zeros scored as a campus on the ECR portion of the test last school year. So that's basically an entire grade level between 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So 119 kids, that we have like 120, each grade. So that is a lot of zeros. And so that is part of the campus improvement plan for this school year. And we missed our A rating by 2 points. So all those 119 zeros, if we could just adjust half of them, then we could have gotten our A. So 35% of our students made a 0 on last year's STAR test, and that's a lot. However, this is something that we can fix. Hitting the CIP goal should be easy if we work together and make a few changes. So now that this is one of our campus goals, it will impact all of us, even Miss Day down there. So here's this is what we had last year. So 3rd grade, they had 43 zeros out of 112, so they were at 38%. 4th grade, 31 zeros out of 114, we were at 27%. And the 5th grade had 45 zeros out of 117, so 38%. So that was last year. So this is the goals going forward for our QSC1 3rd grade. We're expecting, or we want to try to keep it 38 or less, 4th grade 28 or less, and 5th grade 40. And then each QSC going down until we get to our STAR test this coming school year, with 3rd grade having 25, 4th grade having 18, and 5th grade having 25. So that's 50, 68. So that's like almost half of what we had last year. So, but I mean, it's doable if we can. We just need to know like how to fix it. So the first thing is making sure that the students understand the rubric. So I have a rubric to kind of show y'all. You need a rubric. Like you get a rubric and you get one. I know Jackie's familiar with these because she bounces back and forth from ELA to math. She's like, don't say that too loud.
Put that out there.
Math people and y'all. So, do you want one, Kelly? Okay. So basically, is making sure that the kids understand this right here. Because as I went over it in detail, one of the highest kids in my class was amazed once he understood exactly how he was gonna be scored on his test. He was like, that's how they score us? Even though they've seen these and I'm sure they were introduced to them last year, but really digging into them so the kids really understand, like, what's the difference. And I explained it to him like this: if I tell you to go draw a house, you'll come back with all kinds of houses, like the haunted house. But if I say go draw a house with a red door, 2 windows, a big green tree in the front yard, they're gonna know exactly what I want. So digging into this helps them see exactly what they need on their paper in order to get a higher score. And so that's the same as I have here. Another thing is giving them an opportunity to look at the scoring and partner with someone else to determine what the score should be. So Kelly gave us an assignment, a writing assignment, and it was really good, where the kids had, scores from last year, and they got to decide what points they were and then put them in order. And then they had the conversations, they were looking at the rubric, and so they were deciding from this where the students previously got their scores. And so it was good to see the kids dive into that and have ownership in the rubric. So basically, I feel like we need to start with baby steps, and this is not I don't want to say this is how we should do it. This is kind of what I'm doing, but I think as a campus, we have great teachers here, and we're all basically teaching it the same way, but it's just, we call it different things and stuff like that. But breaking down the prompt like a math problem is what I tell them, because there's multiple parts that need to be included in the response, and making sure that they understand that the prompt is the first step. So making sure they know that, identify the prompt, and then teaching them to restate it, and then making sure they know how to cover all parts of it. So the example, last year they had to explain why the farmer and Olivia feel differently while working toward their goals. They not only had to explain about the farmer, they also had to explain about Olivia, and they had to explain how they feel differently, and they had to include their goals. There was multi-parts that they had to include in this prompt. So that was, that's another part of it, because they'll take a piece of it, but not include all the parts that they're looking for. So making sure they understand to break that down, just like their math problems. What I noticed when looking at the data from last year, a lot of the kids had, they were missing their introduction and conclusion. So that's part of it. I mean, if we can just get that down, that could help get rid of some of those zeros. So what I have them do is restate the question, give 2 hints about what you're going to talk about in the next 2 paragraphs, then reason 1 with text evidence, reason 2 with text evidence, and then the conclusion, wrap it up and restate the prompt. This is kind of basic for them to understand. We used this when Ms. Filipovich was here a couple years ago. She was Ms. Day's old partner, and this was when we were all what do we do with these ECRs? And we were going to trainings and everything else. She did this, and the kids they caught on to it really quick. And so it's very basic, very simple for them. It's just now plugging everything into this. So what it says on their ECRs is to write a well-organized essay that uses specific evidence from the selection to support your answer. So they have to clearly state your central idea. So if they're restating, then they're getting that central idea in there. Organizing your writing, if they have the 4 paragraphs, they're going to have their introduction, their conclusion. It's going to be developing as the story, or as it progresses. And then using evidence, they have to use evidence to support reason 1, use evidence to support reason 2. And then using correct spelling, capitalization, punctuation, grammar. So that's the things they're looking for. So getting the structure down to start, if they can get that part down, then we can go in and start adding the transitions, adding the sparkle words, adding the hook, adding that catchy conclusion, because those people are reading so many ECRs that if we can get our kids to where they can come up with something clever, like at the closing, it's gonna get the reader's attention, and they're probably gonna get a higher score. But if nothing else, if they can at least get something like this, they'll get more than a 0. This is one of the activities I found on Teachers Pay Teachers, that they're just quick little warm-ups. Here's this one's about immortal jellyfish. You need one, okay. Okay, so these are, I got these off like Teachers Pay Teachers. I'll show it off. And it's a quick read. They also, one thing I'm noticing is they are struggling with vocabulary. I mean, especially, like I noticed with the bilingual students. We were working on a prompt yesterday that, not a prompt, but we were working in our Eagle Time group. And it was this person is well suited for. They're thinking like outfits. And then they didn't know what a diploma or a degree was. So they were really confused when it's talking about associate's degree, bachelor's degree. They don't know what that is. And so all of them missed all of the questions. And so when I went back and we were talking about it, they didn't know what that was. So another thing is I think we really got to start hitting the vocabulary, because I noticed with MAP scores too, a lot of it's the vocabulary is the weaker side, weaker area. But this has our text features that we work on. It's got, they're short, and then you can just, right here, they can restate, answer, cite their evidence, and I just tell them to conclusion instead of summarize. So they can kind of get their draft here, and then they can come over here and rewrite it. And these don't take long, and the more practice they have at it, the better they're gonna do. And I got these off of Teachers Pay Teachers. There's a whole bunch of different kinds on there. But it's funny because we had just studied the I, so this one was perfect for us. So the other thing we can do to help support our students is let them practice typing, because if they have trouble typing, that's gonna delay them, especially some of our students that work a little slower, if they're like, but if they practice more, then they can pick up a little speed with the typing. So trying to just like get that in. And then find some spelling activities to help them with their spelling, because that is part of what we're being scored on. So we are working, like trying to find some stuff for spelling for them to use. And then on Writerly, let's see, what's that mouse? I bet you it's not gonna connect because I'm not in H&H. Whoops. So in Writerly, okay, yeah, this is good. There's some spelling in here, actually. Let's see. So here's some spelling that we could use to just give them, like, small group work, just to practice. And then also, what we used to do when we first started this ECR stuff is on here, you can go into the state assessments on Writerly. And this can be for, why can't I finish this?
Oh, look,
I think you can click more, my state assessments, there you go.
There's a star. So then we would scroll down. So right here, we get, this is one of the things we did when we were teaching it a few years ago. Like, you have these little stories right here, and then you have the extended response right here. And so we could work with them on this as a whole class, or a whole group, or even just like do sections. Like today we're doing the introduction. Tomorrow we're doing reason one, just breaking it apart. But these are little short stories that we used to help teach them a few years ago, and they did pretty good that year with the writing. So just taking a little bit from that, and then what we already know, and then like math and science, they're gonna be writing soon, right? Okay, so there's also stuff, the AI, you can generate writing ECR prompts for science and math, and if we could collaborate together, maybe we could help, find stuff for y'all, or work together.
This is on our dashboard. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do y'all have access to Writable?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So just working on the grammar and writing, and Kelly does a great job with getting our writing for us, covering all that grammar, and then building the vocabulary again. I put down here that the well-suited for the job, the children were so confused because they were thinking like a suit for the job, and then they weren't sure of what diploma and degrees meant. So, and then of course writing in math, science, and social studies, and encourage them with their writing, because even if it's just a little bit, for some of them, that's a lot. And just getting rid of that anxiety and just building up their self-esteem with writing, eventually they'll start writing more and being more creative and being more open to write and not so afraid and having the anxiety, because a lot of them have anxiety with writing. I think a lot of the teachers, I think everyone has anxiety with the writing, but just, you know, taking the baby steps with it and encouraging them, and even if it's just a little encouragement and they write just a little bit, that's gonna get them out of that zero, hopefully. And then what we were talking about, that math and science could share what they're learning, and then if we have something to support it, we could share ideas, or even just helping the students to see the same structure in both classes, even with the SCRs, which is basically the same thing, it's just short. So, now, how much time do I have? Okay, so before
15 minutes.
you get to thinking that the wonderful, awesome, and amazing ELA teachers here at Earhart are not doing an incredible job because we have 119 zeros, we need to talk about a few things. So this was third grade last year, and if you notice, they had 43 zeros, but they were still behind the state with 38%. The state had 52%. The ones, this is, we want to be below down here. And they were good here, the 3s, 10%, and then they started getting 8%, 8%, 6%, 5%, 10%, so they started getting, oops, well, this is not gonna fit. Anyways, so the 10s I think were like 0%, but as you can see, I mean, even though we had a lot, we're still better off than the state. So that's always, that always makes me feel better. And then of course, that's fabulous fourth grade team. We only had 26% versus the district had 36% and the state had 38%. So we were, even though we had a lot, we're still pretty much below. And that's why, again, like last night, working late, it doesn't, because we all have the same goal in mind. So it doesn't seem like work when you're all working towards the same goal and you see everybody working at your level. That's why I liked Hillary, because she worked at a high level, and so she made everybody else want to work at that level. Versus if you get somebody who just doesn't care, and they're like, peace out, it's 3:30, we get paid the same amount, you stay up here and work, I'm going home. So it's good to have people that work hard, and I think this shows like that's the result from working hard as a team. Our ones were the same across the board. The 2s, we were a little bit higher. 3s, we're lower on the 4s. But down here, this made me happy. We have 15% of the height of 8, so that's pretty good. Versus 10% with the district and 9% for the state, and then the 9s we were low on, and I think 10s were 0s across the board. If the state might have had like 2% or something. But that is kind of the breakdown of the scoring. So we work with great teachers, and a lot of teachers have set the ECR writing as their personal goal this year. I love this because we are all working towards the same goal, and this will help us to get our 2 points that we need. So, and then there's some sweet faces.
Some precious.
So, let me see. All right, so, do you have questions?
I do.
Okay.
I have a question. So did y'all start the CAP framework the same year as like the ECRs were implemented, or was it started a year afterwards? Like just to kind of see like what does like the difference in the data look like? Like I imagine it would, you know, we would see an increase in higher scores after the framework because it seems so like methodical. I just didn't know when our campus started piloting it.
I think we started the ECRs maybe the year before, but we really were, there was a whole bunch of just like not being certain about it. I know we all went to some hotel to meet that Bill guy that does all the writing stuff, and we got the information here, but we just had all this stuff, and it's like, well, what do we do with this? And so the next year is when we had, Catherine was here. I don't know, were you here with her? She had a lucky year, but I thought she was a really good teacher. And she helped me with this, but she's the one who set up the simple framework, and it just made sense, and it was easy to teach them. And so you know, I had a lot of high kids that year, so they jumped on it fast and they were able to like add to it and their scores were pretty good. So I think that framework's just, it's simple. And so it's not confusing. So if they know that they have an idea of the framework and then using the rubric and just plugging it in, you know, it's gonna start off probably not that great, but we can add to it. And then as the year progresses, we can just keep adding, like, okay, now let's put some colorful words in or sparkle words. Let's put, you know, let's look at the hook and see if we can like get the reader's attention with the hook and add all the other stuff. But at least they have the framework, and with that, they can get some points.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think also making sure that third, fourth, and fifth, that we're all aligned in the way that we teach it. So that way, once they learn it in third, they're kind of carrying over in fourth, and of course you're still feeling like you're starting over. It's like they forget, right? But it's aligned third, fourth, and fifth. And I think last year we were still trying to figure out how we want to teach it. Like, I mean, I remember last year in third, I felt like in January we were like, okay, this is the way we're doing it, you know? So there's just a lot of like, what's gonna work? What are the kids gonna, you know, be able to gravitate to? Can they provide 2 sets of textual evidence? Do we just want to say provide 1 so that way they have something on the paper? So there was a lot of that conversation last year, whereas this year I feel like, okay, this is the way we're going to teach it from the very beginning, and the kids are going to learn it this way from the very beginning. So we should hopefully get some better results.
And one of my goals is to, along with the ELA teams, have working back from like, okay, what do we want them to leave kindergarten being able to do? What do we want them to leave first grade being able to do? And being very clear on what that is that leads into this. Because if your kids can come to you already having that background, you have a starting point and you can go from there. You're not starting from nothing. And I will say the group that you have this year in 4th grade is the first group that started doing SCRs in 2nd grade. So this will be your first group that's really been getting it for a few years now. So hopefully you'll see it be easier and easier for them as well.
And I'm glad you mentioned the reason, like just having one reason. So some of our sped kids that have trouble with writing, we can just get one reason out of them. Because I think in 3rd grade, that's what they just did, the one reason. They didn't do the 2. And Corey has a great format, and I'm fine with collaborating and like tweaking what I do or to match hers, or like all of us working together to come up with something. It can be called whatever. It's all basically the same thing, it's just called different things. But if we could just like get like a thing across the campus, like this is what we're gonna call it, so that they all know. But yeah, I mean, I think that just like all of us working together to come up with what's best for them. And then, so like I was gonna show a couple of these. Like this one was a 0 last year. And this student, look how much the student wrote. So just because they write a lot does not mean anything. And I mean, it's not bad. I know one of the kiddos, I saw hers and I was like, I would have scored this one higher. And what I've heard is there was because I've listened to a lot of stuff, you know, just trying to get information on this. And one lady said she kicked back 11 of the ECRs to the state, and 8 of them, their scores increased.
So they did talk about that at the specialist meeting. So I forget, I think it was Lisa and Martha went through a bunch of the scores and determined some that they wanted. They've gone through almost every single one. They determined how many they wanted to send back. I do not quote me on the number. I believe it was $250 a piece. It costs $250 for a rescore per paper. It was a lot. That number may be high. It was at least 50. And so they did spend a considerable amount of money, and a small percentage of them were rescored, but overall there was not a lot. And they picked out the ones that they felt most confident in getting rescored. But I do know there was a district that spent like over $100,000 asking for rescores. So it is a costly endeavor to get them rescored, and they just, the money wasn't worth it.
And I heard that you have to do it like within like 3 to 5 days or something.
I don't know the time frame, but I know they sat and looked through all of them, seeing if they agreed, and grabbed the ones that they thought jumped out the most. So
yeah, definitely it would be worth the money, unless it's those 2 points.
I know.
It would be worth it, though.
Right?
Okay, so I have 7 more minutes, so I guess we can look through some of these, and we can talk
And I think what I'm finding, looking at their their ECRs, looking at what they're writing. And what I haven't concentrated on so much, we've concentrated on the format, and what third grade has sent up, the fourth graders this year that I'm seeing are already very accustomed to writing that way. So I think it's great if we keep going with that format, but discussing, like really discussing the prompt and what it is saying, because the one that you pointed out from third grade, it does have a whole lot of pieces in there. And I think for me personally, I've kind of just sort of been letting them read the prompt, and we do the restate together, but that doesn't mean they understand what the prompt is asking, even though they're restating it. And so just very much picking apart the prompt and getting into the practice of doing that as whole group or in small group or whatever, picking apart the prompt and making sure we understand exactly what it's saying, because they do lack the vocabulary. So
Yeah, that's where that vocabulary comes in place. When you do pick apart, I agree with that. Like explaining to them, because sometimes the terms that they're using on the prompts, they don't hear in the real world. So we have to expose them to the different prompts and what they may be talking about. That way they can get, when they're writing, cause I went to a training this summer and they were talking about the kickbacks. And they did say, they don't care how much you write, they're looking for the people, to the ones that get straight to the point. Answer the question, give me 5 or 6 sentences with the details, and that's all we need. So.
And that's not recorded.
So I know that you I know that
But I got that one.
in the prompt it says how they feel differently about working for their goals. Well, a lot of the ones that we reread were just how did they have different goals. They didn't get the middle part of that. They weren't answering the specific prompt. They were like, did they have different goals? And in there they kind of just worked in a little bit of a summary instead of concentrating specifically on the prompt.
Right, like a lot of my students, the goals, one was about soccer, and they just focused on Olivia getting her goal, like getting the goal in soccer.
Oh,
they focused on that, and they didn't even talk about the farmer because they thought it was about getting the goal
instead of
in soccer instead of setting goals. So if they missed all of that, then they just focused on one, so they didn't talk about the other character.
And then bringing that up, and previously there was a passage about soccer and mud. Was it somebody's name in the passage? So that was confusing to kids because they play soccer in the mud, but one of the characters' name was Mud or something. So they were super confused that year.
Right.
So it's just making sure they understand like goal, like kicking a goal versus setting a goal, like in the passage last year. It's just all those little things that can confuse them.
Like context clues, and how can we figure out, like, especially with the homophones, like what are they talking about?
So I think we can definitely, as a campus, do better than 119 zeros going forward. And I think it's just a lot of exposure and just seeing more of it. I think we got started a little earlier this year than last year. And
Definitely.
I feel like the kids, they're coming with the background, and so we can build on it and, fix those areas that are weak. Even yesterday on the SCR, even my kids that really struggled, they attempted to do an SCR yesterday. So as long as they can put forth effort, we can fix that.
Yes.
So, yeah, and then just doing the SCRs, in like math, sciences, or quick writes, and just whatever you're teaching for the day, you can turn it into a quick write.
Do a restate answer and provide
Evidence.
text evidence.
Yeah. So have you done SCRs?
Well, the thing that's different with science SCRs is basically they'll give you like an image. It could be a table, it could be some sort of stimuli, and you have to answer 2 parts of the question. So, but what we don't tell them is like, the mechanics don't count, like they don't, we don't tell them that, because we still want them to, write proficiently. But it's often dependent, like the second answer is dependent upon the first. So if you get the first answer wrong, like you've got a 0, you know? And so it's like really, what we're trying this year in 5th grade is trying to do a graphic organizer where it's like they've answered part 1, they've answered part 2, now put it together. Just because, you know, so often like our students would maybe answer the first but not the second, or if they answer the second and not the first, and it's an automatic 0. So it's a little bit different than like restating the question, you know, because they only have a certain amount of characters that they can type. But we are working on that, just because, you know, our results weren't great either. And so we're certainly trying to put in writing as much as we can wherever we can. And even just adding like that justification piece to math. So then it's like, well, how do you know, or who was right, or, you know, just a lot of our students that are higher performing like that because, you know, they're natural debaters. So it's like, okay, well, here's your debate, who is right, who is wrong. And then it also helps them identify like some of the misconceptions, so that, you know, they're more aware of that when they're working on their own work.
Okay, well, thank y'all for, you know, listening to this, and hopefully we can help the campus reach their goal this year.
Thank you.